You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 210, we're going to be taking a look at the most recent news around Overwatch, its competitive scene, and of course, we'll talk a little bit about the Overwatch League. Not so much recap, just because we actually have quite a bit to dive into tonight, with some intriguing changes coming to the experimental card, which are now live, but more on that in just a bit. So before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar, and Ed, what an interesting turn of events here. We still have quite a bit of news with the Overwatch League, but we've had some leaks happening for the anniversary events. We have some support changes. We had a developer update. Quite a bit to actually kind of like unpack here for just base Overwatch, which honestly, like, it really feels like it's been kind of few and far between where we haven't really seen such an even split here.
Totally. I thought I was muted and I wasn't. No, it's one of those things where like this is a rare amount of what is going on here. Like we actually have news.
Mm-hmm.
Like this shouldn't be happening. Because honestly, they haven't. This is not what they're used to doing. So yeah, it's definitely been an interesting week with the Overwatch. Obviously, no matter what they say or do, people are going to tell them that they're doing it wrong, which there was plenty of this week. But for them actually being able to pump out all this stuff and be working from home is kind of crazy.
Right.
So.
So let's go ahead and let's jump into the news. So to start things off, we had a little bit of a leak happening for the upcoming anniversary event. So kind of hinted at some of the new skins that we are going to be seeing. One of which is the Masquerade Reaper skin, which I'm assuming is going to be a tie-in from the Masquerade comic, which we got all the way back in 2017. And then they also mentioned that Mercy is going to get a new skin named Dragoon. I don't know if that is going to tie into any sort of Final Fantasy influence or not based off of that name. So that remains to be seen. But Ashe is getting a little red skin as well. So, maybe we'll get a Little Red Riding Hood with Big Bad Bob as a skin for him. I'm not sure, but what we do know is that the event is going to kick off next week. That is on Tuesday, May 19th. And of course, with that, we'll have a patch to, implement it. Probably not too much else outside of that. But we don't know how long the event is actually going to last. Hopefully, we'll know within the next week or so. But I would imagine would probably be looking at early to mid-June for the end date in that regard. So, with the anniversary events, it's always one of the more intriguing ones just because it does allow us to kind of like go back and acquire skins from prior events throughout all of the events. So this one is always one that I know a lot of people look to grind more loot boxes on. So is there anything in particular, Ed, that you haven't quite had the opportunity to get? And remember, when it comes to skins for this year's events, those ones aren't going to be at that discounted currency rate. It would be anything that was 2019 and prior.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I know there's some. Like I know for a fact there's some. I just can't think of like exact ones.
Mhm.
But let's just go with any of the Christmas ones I don't have. Um I I think there's a couple Roadhog ones I want. And then I'm gonna take a look at emotes and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
I might get the Orisa puppy one because I don't have that.
Right.
I have about 16,000 credits saved up.
Oh, so quite a bit.
So I have a few I could buy. But I'll still grind my my loot boxes in the arcade events and stuff like that.
Mhm.
See what I can get. This masked man McCree, I'm hoping it's Zorro. Like a Zorro McCree. That would be awesome. But yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with this because this is usually some of the best time to actually do stuff in the game
Right.
because you get all the event skins in there
Mhm.
at one time. And a lot of them are discounted and it's kind of like a big thank you and yeah, overall it's just a blast. You get to pick what if I remember correctly, you get to pick what like event you want to do or no, it rotates
Yeah, it'd be in the arcade.
in the arcade, yeah. But like they don't have all of the events in there at once. I think doesn't it rotate?
Mhm.
Because we refuse to do any of the May ones. Um, and we hope for like the quick ones because we can just do those.
Right.
But yeah, are there any skins that you or emotes or whatever that you're hoping to get?
Well, here's the thing. For the most part, the primary ones I was eyeing, I've been fortunate to get. But there are obviously, since I haven't been spending a ton of time on like my alt account, I'm looking at things that I really enjoy, like say like the Gargoyle Winston skin is probably one of my favorite within the game.
Mm-hmm.
You also have the Toxic Roadhog, where he's kind of like in that
That's
diver
one that I
suit
want to buy. Yeah,
with
that's
the
one I'm gonna buy.
acid, where it's like corroding his skull, which is badass.
Mhm.
And
Junkrat has a lot of really good ones too.
he does.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think outside of that. Maybe Doomfish for my alt would be another top priority, but for the most part, I've been fortunate enough to get some of the marquee ones, at least for the heroes that I do tend to play.
Mhm.
But I haven't really been accumulating a ton of the event skins from 2020, so if I happen to knock out some of those along the way, I will gladly take them as well. So we will definitely have some more details in regards to the event on next Wednesday's episode once the event is officially underway. But
I mean, we should have like a community night where we just farm loot boxes.
yeah, we could do
I think
that.
I think I might set something like that up on like a weekend
Mhm.
where we'll just and once you get 9, if you have an alt account, hop on your alt account and we can just pump those out. Probably do missions and shit like that, like guaranteed wins type of thing, and just plow through them all and get everyone their loot boxes.
Yeah, it does go pretty quick in a pre-made. But I
Mhm.
just I want to know more about this Ash skin in particular, just because like that could be any wide array of things with that name.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could really do anything, and there's more than 3 legendary skins, I would assume. They said and more even in that post.
I
So
mean, we typically see like 6 or 7.
yeah,
It's kind of varied whether or not like they do a challenge along with the event. So we'll see if there's
which
any
they
sort of
said they're
tie-in.
doing.
Okay.
So there's the weekly anniversary challenges. Is one's going to be Carbon Fiber Sigma, the next will be Fluid de Lis Widowmaker, and then the last one is Masked Man McCree.
Okay.
So those will be your like epics.
Good to know. So they're still trying to basically try to bring people back each week for the event, which is good to see.
Yeah, and I'm assuming there'll be drops for watching streamers and
Mhm.
you know what I mean, stuff like that.
Right. So
Which
new sprays for Halloween or
yeah,
whatever. I don't know what they'll do. I mean, it could be just about anything, or it might just be generic. We don't know yet.
hmm so, but all the more reason to just log in and play, which I have been doing more and more so actually. So yay!
Yep.
I've been playing Farah a lot because I have Top Gun Farah.
There you go. Sometimes that's all it takes, Ed.
Best Farah skin in the game. Don't at me.
But looking ahead at the current hero rotation for the week, we have Mei, Tracer, Orisa, and Moira banned for the current week of competitive play, as well as the Overwatch League. So back into the rotation, you got like Ashe, Reaper, Reinhardt, Brigitte. And I was looking at like a breakdown of like who was eligible to get pulled, and Mercy was the only healer that didn't make the threshold for the pick rate criteria. And Moira, who did get pulled, was actually the second lowest in regards to the usage rate at 28.6%. But what was interesting about this past weekend was there was a healthy mix of dive compositions as well as double barriers. So we got to see a ton of D.Va, Winston. It was primarily dive more
Mhm.
so than other things, just due to the fact that people are running a ton of Echo.
Mhm.
Then opposite that, you would have Orisa, Sigma compositions. Most of those were, May comps or May Reaper, whichever the secondary DPS. You know, it would vary based on the team. So like we've always been curious to see what's going to happen with the DPS rotation, because that always seems to be the one that tends to have like the least amount of options in regards to getting pulled from the hero pool, and that again was the case. There were only 4 DPS heroes that were eligible. Uh, 3 of which revolve completely around dive. That would include Echo, Tracer, Sombra, and of course Mei. But lo and
Mhm.
behold, Ed, we finally had the AI get things right, and they banned Mei into the Shadow Realm at least for a week.
Oh yeah, no, like everyone was happy. They're like, "Yay, man!" And then they're like, "Boo, Tracer," because Tracer is again one of those fun heroes to watch.
Mhm.
But I think they got it right. They got, they of the, you know, the 3 most played DPS, they banned 2 of them. That is, in theory, what should happen every week. Now it doesn't happen every week, but in theory, that's how it should be. It will be interesting to see what they do. Some people think that they're just going to go dive, but I don't think they will be going just dive, because losing Tracer is actually very detrimental to dive.
Yeah,
There are variations you could do.
it would primarily be Echo Sombra dive
Yeah,
in
it would
this
be Echo
case.
Sombra dive, but I'm thinking more of an Echo Ryan Zarya comp, unless they don't want to play Ryan to avoid the um double shatter from Echo.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can think of. But like Orion Zarya, because I believe we saw like Ryan or Ryan D.Va, um, when Echo first was available 2 weeks ago. That's what we kind of saw. So, and we'll see. Especially now, there's going to be a lot of hit scans available
Mm-hmm.
to take out those echoes. So it will be interesting to see what people do.
Right on.
I don't think the support ban changes anything.
Not really. I feel like there are still some supports that are favored over others, and then you have other supports that just aren't touched at all. So it's just like I feel like it's still kind of like map dependent, but like the variations in regards to like how the compositions perform aren't that drastic enough to the point where heroes aren't interchangeable.
Yeah, like for instance, this week we had you know, Baguette was you know banned, so everyone's just like, all right, screw it, we're just gonna go Lucio,
Mm-hmm.
because you have a lot of those fallback options that are going to be good no matter what.
Yeah.
Lucio is one of those. Lucio, you could literally throw into any comp and be just fine. But if you take out Lucio, there's other supports you could just put in its place. So, you bring in Baguette because then you get that, that CC ability with the shield bash, or, you have Moira or Anna. Like, all of them could be in there. Now, when we get to the experimental changes, a lot of that could change. But yeah, I think the support bands is the least impactful in the game.
Yeah, with tanks primarily being the one that would change the most out of any sort of compositions that we would see.
And we're still not seeing Roadhog much.
No, like rarely at all.
Which needs to change. Like, I think that needs to change. Roadhog is one of those fun characters to watch.
It's almost like they need to bring back the pick potential from Roadhog, even though a lot of people hated it.
It was awesome. And I mean, there's nothing better than on, like, watching a Roadhog turn, hook that Tracer, or the pulled pork, with Orisa Roadhog. Like, that was the last time he was even popular, and that wasn't like universally popular.
Yeah, and that was paired with the Mei for the ice fishing.
Yep. So it's just, I think they need to change Roadhog a little here, to get him back into the mix, because right now he's probably the only tank that's really just not seeing anything. Zarya is dependent, but she's still super strong.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, Roadhog is definitely on the low end of the totem pole, and then I think Wrecking Ball would probably be like the next run up.
Yes.
But for the most part, we've seen two very prominent compositions, as we mentioned, between Double Shield and the dive comps, and for the most part, like, we are seeing usually at least 5 tanks being played on a week-to-week basis in the Overwatch League, which, is very healthy, because I actually like seeing that amount of variety that could get pulled from the hero pool going into that next week. I don't like seeing such a small list for the DPS, though. So I'm hoping that eventually we'll see a little bit more variation in that regard. But, I'm just, for now, really enjoying all of the Echo shenanery that we have been seeing in the league. And, haven't had a chance to play it in Ranked as of yet. But, part of that is just I don't want to deal with the DPS queues. But luckily, Ed, there is another mode where we don't really have to worry about that if we want to do that. So let's move into the developer update that we got, which focused on the competitive open queue. So our dev and savior, Papa Jeffrey Cap was back with another dev update, and the first,
with his Reinhardt beard.
The first thing you notice is his beard. Like, it is in full swing right now during the quarantine. A lot of grays happening. He is essentially turning into Reinhardt.
It's distinguished. You know what? Gray in the beard means distinguished. I know a thing or two about this. And yes, I am distinguished.
Okay. But anyways, Jeffrey's like, people want to know what's happening with the competitive open queue. I don't know what people. Maybe he's talking about, like, the Korean player base. More of that here in just a minute. But Comp Open Queue is interesting because in different parts of the world, it is more popular, and in other parts, it's just really not popular at all. So he said that in Korea, competitive open queue is actually the second most played mode in Overwatch, whereas in the United States, Ed, I thought this was pretty interesting, it is less popular than Mystery Heroes and some other workshop modes. Like, yikes. And I can kind of understand it, because I know when this came out, you and I were just kind of like, well, Why?
It's there to appease people.
It's just another way to either appease people or just, additional way to earn, a little bit extra competitive points, which you can use towards
Mhm.
your golden weapons. But, for the most part, being tucked away in arcade, I feel like that lessens the likelihood that someone is actually going to play it, at least on the state side. But, Korea seems to be enjoying it quite a bit, actually. I'm assuming that normal competitive would probably be the most played then in Korea. I don't know. He didn't specify on that front.
I would assume so.
So
I can't see quick play being the
Right.
most. Well, maybe. I mean, that's the thing is you don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if quick play was the most played in NA.
I can see that. So Jeffrey did note that the competitive open queue is going to return. And what's interesting about this is that Team 4 did not anticipate the mode's success. So it's going to be down for a little while, but they are going to have a shortened open queue competitive back sometime in June. They were targeting mid-June, but of course, Jeffrey's like, don't hold us to it, because they don't want to throw something out there and then not be able to hit that date.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting part about this is a little bit further down the line. We're talking early July, and this is when we are getting the start of season 23 of competitive play. What's going to happen is competitive open queue is going to become in official mode supported alongside competitive play. So by that, I mean that when you log into Overwatch and when you go into competitive, you are going to have two options. You are going to have the role queue, which is, normal ranked play. And then you are going to have open queue, which has no restrictions in regards to the roles. So essentially, we have two ranked modes, which means we have two different queue systems. And what I thought was interesting about this is Papa Jeffrey actually mentioned the fact that when these open queues and these ranked queues coexist, the queue times are actually better on both sides. I don't know if that's just a thing where all these DPS that don't want to wait 10 minutes or whatever. We'll say 5 to 15 minutes because it can vary pretty drastically. They just hop into open queue and then they just kind of go at it. Because I know a lot of people, when you talk about queue times and introducing different different roles, so to speak, or different queues altogether, they just assume that everything is going to slow down to a snail's pace, and then they just go from that point. So I'm kind of curious to see whether or not this is going to be a continuous theme that we're seeing from this mode in particular, but it's really hard to say on the NA side if there is much effect at all with improving queue times, knowing that the mode in itself isn't popular. So do you feel like with the shift to it being in the competitive card, that maybe there will be a little bit of resurgence in regards to improving the popularity of the mode? Or is this just kind of like a coin toss still, at least on the NA side here?
I think it's a complete and utter coin toss. It could be popular. I don't think it will be more popular than Roadlock, because honestly, that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Right.
And they even said in this that they're going to be balancing the game on the 2-2-2. I actually, when I first heard this, I kind of compare it to Hearthstone, between standard and wild.
Okay.
You have people who love wild and play wild and can rank up in wild. There's a wild ladder, just like there is a standard ladder. but they do not balance the game whatsoever on Wild. The only time they've really stepped in on like Wild is if something was so broken, they had to fix it. But even that takes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think people are like, well, this is just going to be a return to goats. I don't think it will be, because like we talked about, outside of the upper levels, goats wasn't truly a thing. So yeah, I don't see that being the case.
It's more Clown Fiesta, so old school quick play, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, like that's what it's gonna be. And yeah, it could help the queues. I can see the logic behind that. About like getting better and more DPS may go to this, so there's less DPS queued up now. A cynic might say, well, if more DPS go that route, then more tanks will and more supports will. Which is true, but I don't think that will affect the queues all that much, because I do not think we have a shortage of tanks or healers, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's that we have excess DPS players. So this is fine. I mean, it's an added mode. We have a lot of modes. They're basically just taking it out of arcade and putting it back into regular mode, which to me is just hunky dory.
Yes.
I won't be playing it.
Yeah, it doesn't really entice me all that much. So outside of that, Papa Jeffrey, Cap, praise him. He did hint at the experimental card, which will revolve around support changes and making Bastion more viable. So more on this in our main discussion, because this actually is on live. And he did also note, or just, kind of like remind us that matches below 3500 SR will not be using the hero pools, but this won't be incorporated until, I think you said like the next few weeks, because they had to have an update or something server side for that.
Yeah.
So, in regards to hero pools, obviously with the Overwatch League going on right now, the active, like as long as that's active, hero pools will be determined based on the hero usage rate by the Overwatch League. And then when Overwatch League is not in season, that is when they will pull data from the top players. And I think he even specifically mentioned it would be like top 500 Grandmaster, basically. So Grandmaster and above would be the threshold in that regard for the pick rate.
Sounds about right.
Makes sense, because like they had to do something like when Overwatch League isn't happening, and it wouldn't make sense to just kind of like do it at random at that point, just because, well, you're not really pulling, or maybe that would be better, so people have something else to just pinpoint and argue over, like, oh, it's the dev team's fault for putting this system in place, but the likelihood of them banning something that might be considered fun and something that's completely randomized, might actually be better. I don't know. Like, it just seems like regardless of what they do, you're not gonna police everyone. Like, that goes kind of like without saying at this point. And hero pools has caused quite a bit of commotion, quite a bit of turnover, especially within the Overwatch League. So let's see what's going on around the league, because we got some more departures. We also got some new arrivals. So looking at the Washington Justice, they actually are down both Corey and Stratus. So they're in the market for some additional firepower here. And, Corey basically just outright said, I'm shifting my focus over towards Valorant, whereas Stratus is moving to more of like a content creator type role. I don't know if that's necessarily with the Justice. He kind of like shied away from answering that on his stream.
See, well, in the In the interview, post-game interview with Zoe, he said it was.
Okay.
But it was like, it was very tentative when he said yeah. So
Gotcha. But anyways, you look at these two, and essentially they really became like the poster players of this team in particular. They were essentially internet darlings in a sense that Stratus would always ham up to like the cameras whenever he was on stage, especially with his sock fiascos, all of the aviator sunglasses, all of that good stuff. And Corey really popped off on the hit scan and showed off his pedigree on that front. So a very popular duo now, no longer within the Overwatch League. But Stratus, he did play his last match of the season, or really his career, this past weekend alongside Tuba. So right now you have to think we're probably gonna be hearing an announcement from the Justice between now and I would assume Saturday. Like,
yep, they
we'll
do play
see.
Saturday.
We'll see how late they decide to announce it, because there's been some announcements that were very last minute, and I don't know where the Justice are gonna fall in line in this regard. But it seems like for Corey, he's always wanted to go pro in something like Counter-Strike. So, Valorant was pretty enticing, but, it's really hard to talk about player turnover within the Overwatch League this season without mentioning the fact that a lot of them have been bringing up their disdain for hero pools being one of the drive-in factors. Yes, there have been other reasons behind it, whether it was, team management, whether it was, them wanting to pursue another esport title. But a lot of people have been driving home that, hero pools are being really, like, divisive, not just for the players, but for the coaches as well.
Yeah, I was it Super who said it? I think Super said it. That, like, people think that they actually, someone said they stream less because of 222, and he's like, no, we actually scrim like a lot more because of 222 roll queue. And he's like, so we're spending a lot more time scrimming, which I think is burning people out more. And I think that's a big thing. I don't think it's the actual gameplay. It's the fact that, like, they're having to scrim so much more, having such less free time, and, and doing stuff like that. I don't think it has everything to do with, just that being the case. It's, to me, that's a little bit of a scapegoat, saying I don't like 222, but it's not a scapegoat if you say something along the lines of, okay, well, this is just, I'm practicing 12 hours a day when we used to only practice 8. I have an issue with that. That is not a cop-out answer. That is just burnout. Right. And if you keep doing that, you will get burnt out. So yeah, it's definitely an issue. This is not the end of the retirements.
Nope.
I think Corey leaving is much bigger than Sinatraa. Now, Sinatraa has a bigger name, but I think Corey's the better talent. So, like, Corey was one of those, like, okay, we got somebody special here. Sinatraa, you had a name, essentially. So yeah, it sucks, but I've definitely seen some clips of Corey playing Valorant, and yeah, he's going to be real good at that game.
Yeah, and
real good.
Corey had basically played in every single Justice match throughout team history as well, so he was pretty integral to the lineups they were running, where Stratus was more being subbed in and out if they decided to play Tuba at that point.
Do you think they go Korean? I mean, the majority of their team right now is Korean. I mean, you have Arc, Aim God, Roar, Tuba. Now you have Elivote. Lullish can't be there yet, so you have one non-Korean on the roster right now.
The issue that I'm seeing with this, and
Visa.
this is also going to tie into the Titans, is a lot of the NA teams are not able to grab Titans former DPS players due to visa issues. So it's just like I don't know if that's going to be the right call.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also interesting in the sense that we've seen a lot of moving parts, obviously, with retirements here or people kind of like shifting their location here and there, or having like a medical leave or just a leave of absence in general. But we have seen some players on more than one occasion actually playing with high pain. So I'm not going to rule out someone playing from Korea. But for the most part, if we're talking about DPS, I feel like you would need someone to be in NA.
Yeah, you can't get away with a Widowmaker or like a McCree or Ash or something like that on 250 ping. It's just not gonna work. But yeah, no, I agree. Now, could they go out and get another DPS? Yeah, they probably could from another team. I mean, I mean, the Fusion Philly has a plethora of DPS that they could probably
they should just sell Chipsa.
Or EQO.
That's that's not a bad one just because like
I know there's issues there with him and Carpe, but you have Ivy and you have Kisu. So like, let's be real, you're probably not gonna. You don't need EQO. You just don't. Not even for depth. Like, he's 4th on your depth chart.
Yeah, so, at this point, like, unless you just want him to Brigbot as Echo.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's... They could go that route. Spider is available. He lives in the DC area. You could sign him.
But is it worth $50,000?
I don't know. I think it could be. I'd sure as shit want to. But,
yeah.
What were you going to say?
I mean, I don't know if you were to keep going.
No.
But, there still is quite a bit of, like, tier 2 talent that, could get called up. Because there has been a lot of movement on that front, too. Because after the Titans, hit that iceberg, sank, froze to death in the Arctic, they turned to Second Wind. And, what's the most important part about this is they actually got the staff along with some of the roster. So, the coaching staff coming on is definitely a huge get in that regard, just because they have brought in quite a bit of talent to the Overwatch League. So when we look at the Second Wind players that they brought in, they picked up Dalton, Shredlock, and Rolf. So also joining the team, you have DPS player Suna, off-tank KSA, as well as Karkar. So Karkar, another familiar name. This was someone who at one point was on Fusion University before they went to Korea and shit the bed. He then went over to ATL Academy, and, unfortunately, that team disbanded a couple of months ago. And then you have KSA and Suna, who had both played in, a couple of different teams in Contenders Europe. I know KSA was, I want to say Young and Beautiful, and then he played for Raspberry Racers with Suna on Eternal Academy, if I'm not mistaken. And then prior to that, he was on British Hurricane, so an Academy DPS player in both regards there. So, unfortunately, like with this, Vancouver, they had like that slow drip news week, and everyone was waiting with bated breath to see what the hell is going on with the team. And then now you have all of these players who are in this position where they have some pretty big shoes to fill. I will say the Titans fan base, for the most part, was very embracing, which I was happy to see. But it was definitely a rough start, as you would come to expect with a team who is on limited practice, who is actually like absorbing essentially 3 new players to this core roster for the second win crew. Now, I will say, Dalton in particular has always kind of been someone who, if we talk about the World Cup for like the NA side, he's always kind of been like an outside shot at, you know, potentially getting a nod. And he actually had some pretty damn good Tracer play this past weekend. So he definitely had some pop-off moments, but this is a team that basically came in with little scrim time. KSA is playing from Europe, playing on high pain, and they were pretty hyper-aggressive in their approach. Now, was it sloppy? Yes. Can that be improved over time? Obviously, like, it's still really early on, so I don't want to be, like, too hard on this new Titans roster. But as a fan, you know, we're in this really weird position where a lot of us are not happy with the way that things kind of went down between the team management and, you know, that runaway core of that roster. But then, you know, you're thankful to see all of these tier 2 talents now getting the opportunity to compete. So we're in this weird position where we want to see these players do good, but we also want to see the organization not do good. So it's just like, I don't know what to think right now, but all I know is, you know, I'm definitely happy for Karkar, who, you know, unfortunately, like, I'm glad he dodged a bullet in a sense that he didn't go to Korea because he couldn't, because he was underage at the time. So he didn't have to see Fusion Uni in shambles after they were one of the more dominant teams in NA. But I just want to keep seeing Dalton progress as a player, because I really feel like this is someone that could be a major player for some time to come, should he not decide to move elsewhere.
Yeah, this team actually impressed me. Now, granted, they did not win. I did not expect them to win. Their team that was thrown together probably had, what, 2 days worth of scrim time together? Like, some of them have played together, but you throw 3 new players into the mix, then your scrim time with the other 2 don't mean a whole lot. Especially playing with somebody on ping from Europe. I believe he's originally from Saudi Arabia. So our first player from Saudi Arabia?
Yep.
Possibly. I'd assume so.
He is.
So you know what? I'm happy with the way the Titans performed. I'm also happy that, yes, they did not, you know, they screwed the pooch with the Titans players, but they didn't just say, we're going to go out and get a tier 3 team. Like, they went out and you know, kind of got the coaching staff and the players from one of the best tier 2 teams. So it's not like they basically said, screw it, we're going to go, you know, we're going to go London Spitfire route. Or we're gonna go Boston route. You know what I mean? Like, they actually brought in legit players. So they're not gonna light the world on fire. They're probably still a bottom 5 team, but they're not a disgrace as a team. Maybe the organization, but as a team, they're not a disgrace.
Yeah, what's really interesting about this is a team that is essentially coming in at the midway point of the season. So how far they're going to be able to progress versus all of these teams that have been playing together for months. You know, granted, some of them have had like 10 weeks off in a row due to the schedule in, but, you know, London looked pretty good in their return for the most part, at least in that first series. But I want to see how much this team is going to budge, either up or down, just knowing that they essentially don't have equal footing out of the gate, because they are coming together midway through the season. So if this team manages to, you know, fall, you know, maybe below, like, slightly below the middle of the pack, I would really consider that to be a success for this new Look Titans roster. So definitely something to keep an eye on moving forward. But I'm really anxious to see more of Dalton on DPS. And, with Tracer being banned, I want to see what else he's going to throw out there this week.
For sure.
Now, we also have some new additions, and one, this kind of like it came before another announcement from this team. And, let's talk about Boston Uprising really quick. So Uprising, they went out and actually picked up a familiar face, someone that we've seen in the World Cup on the Team Australia. He actually at one point was also on Uprising Academy. That being the Flex Tank Punk. Now
Yes.
Punk, this is someone that came out of Contenders Australia. He was on Sydney Drop Bears. He competed with Dark-Sided before he moved and joined the Uprising Academy. Now, what's good about this is Punk actually has dual citizenship in the United States as well as Australia, so you're not going to deal with any sort of visa issues or anything like that. But this signing in particular came at kind of a weird time, in the sense that, Punk got brought in, and then a couple of days after that, we learned that their Flex Tank, who at the time was starting, that being Brucin, is retiring from the Overwatch League. So it seems like every single time there's a bit of movement on this Uprising roster, they are always at the league minimum of 6 players. And this has definitely been a whirlwind of a season for Boston. They've had 3 players retire. One of them was terminated. One player went on medical leave. Like, it seems to be almost a revolving door on this team in particular, and it shows in their results. Right now, they are a league worst 1 win, 10 losses. Their map differential is absolutely horrendous. It's minus 25 at this point.
Oof.
And I was looking at that, and I was like, ugh, like that's brutal. So I was like, okay, who are the teams like right above them? So you have the Chengdu Hunters and Washington Justice, who are both 3-9. And if you combine the maps for those 2 teams, they're at minus 26 map differential. That's that pretty much matches what Boston is at. So it's just like you really hate to see such a severe drop off, even to the point where even a team that we wouldn't really consider to be that good is also that much further ahead than a team like Boston. So, it's kind of like at this point now where Boston is in an insurmountable amount of, like of a hole, essentially, to like dig themselves out of. Like, I can't really imagine a situation where they get squeezed in the top 12 at this point.
No.
Being down 26 maps doesn't help either. But the fact that, they're 11 games in, only have 1 win to their name is pretty brutal. And, I would not be surprised to see this team get gutted at some point, whether it is during the season or, during the off season.
Yeah. I mean, they have some good pieces. I will say that. Like, I don't think Myungbom is bad. I don't think Jerry's bad. I don't think Color Hex is even that bad. It's just, to me, this is all about the coaching and the team. Like, the team has given up. Because the organization seems to have given up. So yeah, and Punk, we've seen it was a good pickup. Like, I think a lot of people were actually like pleasantly surprised they picked up Punk. But all right, you said the league minimum is 6.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 7.
That got changed at some point, from what I
Oh,
recall.
it did?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought it was 7, at least at the start. It may have been like at the start of the league year, you had to have at least 7. But they still should sign somebody else. because just they need to. Um, I think they have one of the worst main tanks in the league. I'm not sold on Halo either. It's just a bad organization. It's kind of like it reminds me of the Mayhem from like season 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the first half of season 2.
Yeah, not the top 5 Mayhem or the top seeded May tournament Mayhem.
Mm-hmm. It's just like this is the same thing to me, and we'll see what they do. But yeah, I agree with you. I feel this roster is just going to get gutted at some point or another, and maybe not by their own volition. Like at this rate, everyone's just going to leave the team.
Yeah, and this is a team that's always been very good at like selling off talent. And at this point, I think Yunbun like might be the most likely person to kind of like jump ship or to just go to another team. But like it's really hard to gauge where like the trade bait is outside of that, because I feel like Jerry does well, but not well enough, where he's too much of a high risk to really play. So I don't know. Like it's really it's been a rough season, and hopefully. I haven't looked at the schedule. I wonder if we'll get Titans Uprising soon, because I'd be curious to see how those teams match up against one another. But other than that, we did.
I just want to point this out about your fact about how they're selling off. Imagine this: if they would have kept, they got Krusty gone.
Mm-hmm.
Note and Gamsu gone. Striker gone. Aim God gone.
Right.
Let's see who else was pretty darn good. Kelix gone. Neko gone. Mistakes gone. I was surprised they let go of Mistakes. Personally, because he did a darn good job of coming in for he who must not be named number 1.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like they're the biggest what if team. Like you don't trade away that team, you're a top 8 team probably at this point. With that roster, the only thing you probably could upgrade is your second DPS.
Right.
So, but we can move on.
So we had a little bit of a tirade happening across social media, and of course this also ties into hero pools. Now we often talk about the prior disconnect that we saw between hero pools in the Overwatch League not really impacting our games in ladder, and vice versa, depending on what system was implemented at the time. But we saw the Outlaws assistant coach Dream really venting about the state of the game, where he had a pretty lengthy Twitter thread, and he's just talking about how like the hero pools have been the most divisive addition to the game since they were implemented back in season 21, which was back in March. And just reading this, you could just sense the frustration. He seems to be very frustrated primarily with the community and like the separation from the competitive scene. And here's the thing, Dream. Like the biggest mistake, and this is something that is really early on in this thread, is the fact that he mentions Reddit. So you're meaning to tell me that you disagree with Redditors? That's just another day on the internet. Like, of course there's going to be a bit of a disconnect, and you just getting frustrated reading some of the comments from some of the community members. But he basically goes on to say that hero pools have been like the worst thing to happen to the game. There's a lot of talk between, him and other people in the league who are also in a similar position where it just makes their lives hell. It kind of like ruins the team's ability to iterate and learn and improve. And it kind of makes it hard to like really like review tape, whether it is of yourself or your opponent, knowing that things are constantly in a state of flux due to the system in itself. So you basically have like this meta shift that happens basically on Thursday, and then it's just like a scramble for like 2 days, not even like 2 full days, to like figure out, what is the most ideal thing to bring into this, next game, whenever it is, whether it is on Saturday or Sunday. But it just seems like, for the most part, his really like driving factor is the fact that hero pools as a system makes the league a lot more stressful and feel less rewarding. And he mentioned like that's why we keep seeing all of these retirements, and that there needs to be a fundamental change to the system, and how all of these things, whether it is role lock, hero pools, are basically just crutches to kind of like a band-aid fix balancing within the game. Because for the most part, like the dev team was talking about like, okay, we're gonna be a little bit more aggressive with the changes, and I feel like at certain times we've seen that a little bit more than others. But on the competitive side, the one constant is always the fact that the amount of time that it took them to make changes to Mei was absolutely ridiculous. So she didn't get hard nerfed until April 15th, even though she's been pretty oppressive since December. And she's still seeing a ton of play even post nerf. So it's not even like she's bad in her current state either. But it just seems like there's been a lot of podcasters kind of like venting about hero pools as well, and a lot of people just kind of like turning a blind eye to competitive integrity and all of that within the Overwatch League when it comes to the ever-changing characters that we're seeing being brought in on a week-to-week basis. But it's just like, I'm honestly just getting tired of talking about hero pools. But I feel like at the end of the day, no one is ever truly going to be happy with this system, whether it is on the competitive side of the game or on the ladder side of the game. Like, there's no happy medium where you can please both the ladder player and the competitive Overwatch player.
Yeah, no, there's no way you can do that, because I will say the changes have been coming way more rapid than before.
Right.
They may not be the changes that they want, but the changes are out there. And sometimes the best way to change the meta, or is to maybe not nerf the one character everyone perceives as a problem, but to buff the other characters. Now, granted, that's you're getting into power creep territory, which is a whole separate issue that I don't want to get into. But this experimental card has been very good for the game. And they have been coming out with this stuff quite regularly. Every 3 weeks, which is plenty of time for me. And yeah, it's not in the game immediately because it does need to be tested just a little bit. And they're doing that. Now, hero pools, I honestly believe when they brought in they announced that they're going to be doing like the new competitive open queue or whatever, they want to see how popular it is. Right. Because they did say that hero pools may not be a permanent thing. They're going to test it out. So it could be one of those, we're going to see how popular this is with the players and see how many of them actually do it. And if role queue is really that big of an issue and you just see people flocking towards it, then yeah, they might get rid of it. So yeah, it's it's going to take time, but I don't blame the team for lack of balancing lately. because that is all they've been doing is tweaking and adjusting and doing all of that stuff. Yeah, it took a little while for May to do it, but the thing is you know, there's going to be a fine line between everyone just wanting someone nerfed into the ground and them changing her so much that she's utterly useless,
Right.
which is not what they want.
And then you also factor in, well, do you truly want to balance the game around the highest level of competition as well?
Which I've kind of come around to balancing it that way because it's trickle down effect. You know, people play characters because they see the pros play it. So I've come around to that. But again, that's a whole different discussion we could have.
Right.
But yeah, I truly believe that if this new competitive open queue is even fairly popular, especially for the higher levels, then I think we're going to get rid of role queue. Maybe not right away, but maybe for Overwatch 2.
Yeah, and who's to say, like, maybe they just don't drop hero bans altogether for the Overwatch League and just have it be ladder only?
Yeah. But the thing is like, now people, there's no pleasing the fan base. Because when Roll Queue was announced, everyone was so ecstatic and how amazing it is. And this is exactly what the game needs. And now they're like, well, Roll Queue, well, we don't get to choose the Roll Queue or the hero pools, so it sucks. Well, I mean, we all know why you can't pick it, because you can't be trusted. Like, plain and simple, you can't be trusted to do that. It's one of those things where there's no good system where they just leave it up to the players. So they had to do it themselves, and they may tweak it more, but it's probably going to go away at some point soon.
Yep, and then we're back to square one. Congrats. I would just be curious to see, since they have been more proactive with patching and balance updates, if on the higher end of play, so, you know, we're talking top 500 and above, how many variations of compositions that we would be seeing within, like, we'll say, like, a month to 2 month time frame? Because that always tends to be like the drawn back point, where they don't want any sort of meta to have that much of a lasting impression, where it is just a primary thing being ran on a week-to-week basis, and then you just run into all of these sort of mirror compositions, and the only way to beat it is by running the same thing, so much and so forth. But like, I don't think we've truly had that opportunity to see that, because they did decide to just go the the hero ban route. So maybe, it's gonna be a while before we actually have any true answers to see what is the right answer, or even if there is a right answer, because no matter what, someone's gonna vent. But it's really hard to say whether or not just removing hero pools outright would suddenly just decrease the workload or just the amount of pressure that a lot of these coaches and players are having, knowing that they are on such a time crunch at this point. Knowing that they basically only have Thursday and Friday to really sort out, what the game plan is going into that weekend.
Yeah, and I'll just add this, because I've been just going back and forth between Roll Queue and hero pools. I've meant hero pools the entire time. I know I may have said Roll Queue, but to me those are very similar things. Obviously they're obviously different. They're not going to go back to just everyone goats. We're not going back to goats. That is a given. But they're sticking with the 2-2-2, which I think they should. But the hero pools is what I was talking about.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let's jump into our main discussion for tonight, which is about the new patch that was deployed to yesterday. As a matter of fact, that would be May 12th, which was a Tuesday. So all of this revolves around the experimental card and the changes that our dev and savior, Papa Jeffrey Kep, praise him, mentioned during that last developer update. So some pretty intriguing stuff here, Ed. Some definitely probably like, yeah, it's not that drastic. Others like, okay, this is gonna only impact one area of the game and not the higher end. And then you're like, okay, like these Junkrat changes are kind of intriguing. These are like kind of like all over the place. So let's start at the top. So Ana, the biotic rifle healing was reduced from 75 to 70. Very minor. Okay. Let's just do this by roll. I feel like that would probably be the better way to do it.
Probably an easier way to do it.
So we have Mercy, where her staff healing per second was increased from 50 to 55. Okay, another fairly minor one. And then we got the Moira changes, which all revolve around the biotic orb. So the damage radius was reduced from 5 meters to 4 meters. They increased the projectile speed from 16 to 20, but then they lowered the projectile duration from 10 seconds to 7 seconds. Quite a bit there, and I do want to double back after I read off the Zenyatta change. So we are looking at Orb of Discord, where the damage amplification was increased from 25% to 30%. Alright, Ed, so looking at these, obviously, the one that probably impacts us the most would be the Moira changes.
Correct.
And, I'm looking at this, and I was like, okay, maybe we're going to be in a situation where we're just not automatically going to get 4 or 5 golds in every match that we play at our level, because that does happen quite a bit. The other part of it is the alt charge rate has to take a hit here, knowing that the orbs are going to be less active. And also travel faster. So in a situation where, you're just throwing an orb out, it's gonna fly by people a lot quicker than what it was prior, so you're not really getting the same effectiveness that you would have prior. So I want to see how much longer it is going to take to gain that coalescence as opposed to where it was prior. So I want to see where coalescence is going to fall in line in regards to some of the other support alts and just how quickly you are able to earn it.
Yeah, it's definitely good. We're no longer going to be getting gold. Well, actually, no, we probably will still be getting golds when we're on Moira, because she's still super powerful. I think this is a good nerf to Moira. She's a little bit too oppressive low end, but I don't think this affects too much on the higher end. Because they're just more skilled than us. So that's good. As far as the Zenyatta, that's just reverting one of the old GOATS changes, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
The only part of that they didn't revert was the damage of the orb in itself. So I was actually looking at this. So it's still at 48. So in a situation where, you hit 2 Discord headshots, you're at 249.6 damage. Still not quite enough to, 2-tap those 250 HP heroes. But basically, yeah, it's kind of like a revert. Just they didn't, bring the damage back along with it.
Which, fine. Mercy, extra healing. Fine with that as well. Ana, less healing from the rifle. Fine with that. Those are the little tweaks I think that they should be doing to kind of even it all out. So overall, I think these are pretty good healing changes. I am a little bit surprised that Brigitte did not get changed at all, but this is a very good start. Or Baptiste. Like that is one healer we're not seeing a whole lot of. We're still seeing, but not a whole lot. So that was another one I was surprised they didn't do anything about.
Because normally when they've been doing experimental cards, it's kind of just been baseline across the role.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. But man, I'm just looking back at this Moira.
I really feel like out of all of those, the bigger one might be the damage radius being reduced.
Yeah,
Because it's essentially giving you less ticks on top of the fact that it's going to go by quicker. And also, last shorter as well.
yeah. I mean, the projectile speed increase. I can't. In my head, I can't imagine if that's a nerf or a buff. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's quicker, so it could get by them quicker, or it could get into a group of them quicker, which is good because once it connects onto somebody, it slows.
Well, I think with this, I think we're in a situation where I wonder if we're better off trying to ricochet orbs again off of walls, just knowing that they are going to travel faster. Because if you just do it like a straight shot, it's just going to, sail right over, and you're not going to get that many ticks out of it. Where if you bounce it off the wall, you can still get something on the way back.
And I wonder if the projectile speed increased from 16 to 20 and the duration of it reduced from 10 to 7 even each other out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like if it could get there quicker, but it's only going to be open going for a little bit shorter time. So you don't have those people who are back at spawn throwing a healing orb because it's not going to get there in time. It's stuff like that. Like I wonder if those will kind of wash each other out.
I feel like it's slightly less distance, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Just, I mean,
slightly,
looking at the numbers.
But yeah, slightly less, but like pretty similar. So yeah, you're right. The radius is probably the big thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about the damage changes. We have changes to 2 heroes. We got Bastion and also Junkrat. So Bastion, spread was increased by 10% in the configuration Sentry, and then the shots until you hit max spread reduction was lowered from 60 to 40, also in Sentry. And then we're also looking at the Bastion self-repair. So the resource drain rate was increased by 20%, and then the healing per second was increased from 75 to 90 for the HPS. Bastion is always, I feel like, going to be in the same spot no matter what they decide to do, where people do not really deal with it well at the low ends, and Bastion just really isn't that viable on the high ends, and it's just like, there's really no middle ground. Because we've seen points where, Bastion is running around, he's able to shoot and move, and, there was at one point where he was just like a better soldier, It's just like, I don't quite know what to make of it, but it feels like Bastion always feels oppressive in one part of the ranks, and then non-existent in the other.
Yeah, Bastion is one of those where it's like I was talking to one of my co-hosts from Dropping Spicy last night, who does play a little bit of Overwatch, and I was explaining that I'm like, yeah, they put in these changes about the healers, they tweaked them. I'm like, then they buff Bastion, and he's kind of like where we are. He's like, why the hell are they buffing Bastion? And I'm like, see, that is what you get from our level. But if you go higher, it's like, well, we never see Bastion.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only time we've seen Bastion in any form of competitive play was on certain maps when they bunker down with Orisa's shield and Baptiste. I think on Hanamura, point A defense, we'd see it, and that was pre-Orisa shield nerf.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this is one of those heroes that probably. I don't know if what they're doing will actually make any form of difference. Um, Bastion is definitely one that should be on the block for a total rework, like Symmetra style, Torbjorn style reworks. Because what he has now is just not cutting it.
You know what they should do? Just give us the ability to control Ganymede. That's what the players want.
No.
Or
No.
trigger his, trigger him like he does in the in his short,
Right?
and give him like damage increase or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see where this goes. Yeah, we'll see where it goes, because it could be one of those things where we do the math. We don't do know the math off the top of our head, but self repair could be something that is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can just sit there and repair and not die, type of situations until like multiple people are attacking you at the same time.
Yeah, while we're at it, let's just bring back his shield and like his weak spot on his back.
You shut your damn mouth.
I don't think they'll ever bring that back. But anyways,
if they bring back the shield on the front of Bastion, GG, game deleted.
It would have to be a really crappy shield, like the Brigida shield.
Yeah, it would have to be like a 50 armor shield.
Or like
they did that, I could deal with that.
Mm-hmm. So Junkrat also got quite a few changes here. To multiple things, actually. So the frag launcher projectiles maintain slightly more velocity on Ricochet. They also looked at the concussion mine, where they increased the projectile speed from 20 to 25. And then the ricochet aspect of concussion mine, in regards to the distance off of enemy players, was greatly reduced. So, a little bit more up close and personal. Which kind of ties into, like, the next thing, actually. That is his passive, that being Total Mayhem. The bomb detonation time was reduced from 1 second to 0.7 seconds, and then he also increased the spread of the bombs by 50%. This is interesting. It looks like Junkrat is channeling his inner kamikaze, where he's going to be doing a lot more, like, suicide missions. So, like, I feel like this is going to be a better one to test out at the lower ranks than the Bash one, just because, like, a lot of people love playing Junkrat and they really enjoy his kit. And, maybe you're going to get a couple more kills when you decide to just, charge in and just, take matters into your own hands. Maybe we'll actually be seeing more passive kills in this case than we were seeing prior.
Yeah, I like these changes for Junkrat because I play a lot of Junkrat. And projectiles from the frag launcher, slightly more velocity on Ricochet, fine. Concussion mine speed, good. Ricochet distance off enemies greatly reduced, sure. Bomb detonation, that's going to get a lot of people. That is going to get a lot of people, especially at our level, because people don't have the reflexes.
Yeah, and
as the higher end, and you just don't pay attention to it.
They're already getting hit by it at 1 second, so.
Yeah, so now they're like, you have less time, and you have to go farther away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't 1v1 a Junkrat up close because you will die. Do I think it's enough? No, I do not. But it's a nice little change. Like, these changes won't make Junkrat pro on the meta or in the pro scene, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice and all, but at our levels, we're already seeing a lot of Junkrat.
Yeah, all these silver and gold Junkrats are drooling.
Mm-hmm. You mean me?
Yeah, basically you.
Okay, fair enough.
Only person.
Yes, I'm the only one NA gold or below that plays Junkrat.
Basically.
If you didn't know.
That's not true.
It's a proven fact.
Oh.
It's science.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
I mean, if you said it and it's released on the internet, right? Like,
yeah.
it
Oh,
must
for
be
sure.
true.
Yeah. It is 100% true. Don't question me on it.
All right. So, we can expect to see all this getting patched through to, the actual live game, in probably a couple weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if nothing on here is that oppressive that it will change. Like it won't come through.
Right.
Like that's just me. But you never know because they sometimes just remove something for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, like the shield bash.
Mm-hmm.
Thunderation with Brigida. Not that I thought that was an issue anyway, but it's just like that was the only one that actually got removed. I didn't get patched through.
So stupid.
Yeah, to each their own. I don't think it was super oppressive, regardless, just knowing that, Brig doesn't really have that much of a shield anyway, so the likelihood of you getting shield bashed, not necessarily
Slim to
that
none.
great. It was pretty low. But that's besides the point. But I will be anxious to actually hop on to, run a couple Moira games just to check out the distance that we get out of the Bionic Orbs at this point, and also, just experimenting with Ricochet and the Orbs versus just doing a straight shot. Cause, if we're ricocheting, maybe the alt charge rate is still going to be about the same as what it would be on live, or, if we just do straight shots, if it's going to be that much worse. So definitely going to be something that I'm going to be testing out here this week whenever I log in. And, yeah, I think that's pretty much it, Ed. Like, unless there's anything else you want to note in regards to the card here.
No, there's not really anything else as far as the experimental card that I really want to go over because I don't think there really was anything else. I'm excited. We'll get another patch next week. I don't think that the experimental changes will go live next week, but they could. I'm not saying they won't, but they could. So get out there, get ready to play some Overwatch and get some of those loot boxes, those sweet loot boxes. I have to go through and make a list like day one and be like, okay,
of what you're trying.
This is what I want. Type of situations. So, because I'm past the point of needing to buy loot boxes. Like I'll never buy loot boxes again in this game. Because to me, it's pointless. So yeah, it's gonna definitely take some time, but I'm gonna try and get all the ones I want.
All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap things up for tonight then. So if you guys want to help us out, please do us a favor, head on over to iTunes and write us a review. Let us know how we are doing, and if there's anything else you would like to see us incorporate into the show. We are always looking to make for a better listening experience for you guys. And if you want to find additional content, consider checking out our podcast directory for all things Overwatch. That, of course, being Overwatch Recall, which you can find on our website. And then, periodically, because I know I've been slacking on this, we do release a weekly recall, which has a list of all the prior week's episodes. I'm hoping to get to that tonight. If not tonight, tomorrow at the very latest. So apologies on that. Scheduling has just been hectic, which I'll definitely get into more next week. At least on Overwatch League Network. But anyways, you can also support our network via Patreon, where we have tiers starting as low as $1 a month. So if you want to find more information on that, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network, where you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Daniel, Owl, Kesha, Agent Life, and 044 in helping our network grow, and every little bit does help, and it does keep Ramsey's lights on during OWL by the numbers, which, by the way, Ed, he did not fade into the abyss last night, so he does know that light switches do in fact exist.
He did not fade into the abyss. Good for him.
You know, it might have just been like a once in a blue moon thing, so we'll have to go back to that next Tuesday. But anyway,
Yeah, see what's going on there.
it might just be a one and done, and then that's it. Be like, oh well, just back to normal. It's just another
he's like,
Tuesday.
I turned the lights on for 1 week. That's good enough, right? So all right, let's go over where you can contact us. So you can contact the show through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website, and that's owlnshow.com. We do put all these wonderful videos over on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We have a Discord where you can come hang out with us at discord.me/OWLN show. We are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. So we are a Twitch affiliate, and you can help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly. So Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network. On Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have OWL by the Numbers. And then Wednesdays, we have this show, Heroes Never Die, at 5 p.m. Pacific. Tavern Tales is the Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast Toadman and I do every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, but that is over at twitch.tv/TavernTalesHS. You can contact me personally on Twitter at Ednar83 or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ednar. Make sure to tune in this Saturday, 9 o'clock Central, for a special birthday Goofy movie.
Oh, are we
Goofy
watching
movie.
Jay and Silent Bob?
Live stream. Me and there's going to be 5 of us that are going to be there, and we're going to live stream and comment on a Goofy movie for my birthday. Because we are all dorks. Totem, where can they find you at?
Well, I'm over on Twitter at TotemlyDrunkCTR, and when I stream, it's on Twitch at twitch.tv/TotemlyDrunk. And of course, you know, we do have the Scary Movie podcast I've been doing as well, which is on Twitter at HandleWithScare, and then you can find Handle with Scare on all the major podcatchers now. And yeah, doing a lot of stuff over there, so hopefully you guys can join us on Tuesdays post OWL by the Numbers over in Cast when we do our double features. And, you know, if that's not your thing, you know, you could always come hang out with us on Twitch during our podcast nights. We always appreciate everyone that stops by in that regard. But I do want to thank you guys again for joining us tonight on Heroes Never Die. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar, and we will see you guys back next week. You guys take care.